Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the launch of the second Te Ao Rerekora Action Plan, Breaking the Cycle of Violence. My name is Chhour, for those of you who don't know me, and I am the Minister for Prevention of Family and Sexual Violence and the Minister for Children. This is a big day, a special day, and I want to acknowledge the experience and the expertise represented by the people in this room today. This action plan marks a significant milestone for us. We are now in year 3 of our 25-year national strategy to eliminate family violence and sexual violence. We have had a high level of interest in this event, so it's great to see so many people together here today, given we're just 10 days away from Christmas. Thank you all for making the time, and in many cases travelling some distance to be here this morning. I would also like to acknowledge those who are joining us on the live stream. I am grateful for your support and dedication to this work. I have met many of you over the last 12 months and you're truly inspirational. I'd particularly like to acknowledge my parliamentary colleagues who are here with us today. Louise Upston, Minister for Social Development and Employment, the Community Sector, Child Poverty Reduction and Disability Issues. Mark Mitchell, Minister of Police, Corrections and Emergency Management, Members of Parliament and members of the Board Te Puna Anui, along with the wider team and the leaders from across the public services and the community. And I'd also like to say a special thank you to someone who has enabled all this to happen, and that's my husband who has joined us today. Without your support, I would not be standing here today launching such an important document, so thank you very much. I spent the last 12 months travelling the country to hear your thoughts on how we can make a real difference. In this space, and thanks to a significant community engagement, we are able to capture the most consistent feedback and consider this in the process of developing this national strategy going forward. I'm pleased to be part of a government that sees value in this work and are setting a target of 20,000 fewer victims of assault, robbery or sexual assault holds the governments and agencies to account, and it also keeps this issue front and centre. If we don't acknowledge the problem, how can we work towards fixing it? As I'm sure you're all aware, the strategy is delivered through successive action plans. And I'm pleased to say that the strategy has cross-party support, which means it can have a generational effort. This means we can make foundational system changes sustained over time to get real lasting improvement. The strategy has a strong focus on primary prevention, healing, and the critical role of community leadership in achieving change that lasts. And first, I want to talk a little about family violence in New Zealand. It is important to try and grasp the size of the problem we are dealing with. Family violence and sexual violence is at a crisis in New Zealand. 1 in 2 women, 56%, experience intimate partner violence in their lifetime, and that number is higher for Māori women, 65%. And we know only 6.6% of sexual violence is reported to police. These crimes are devastating for individuals, whānau, and their communities, and carry intergenerational consequences for health, education, and economic and social well-being. And of course, incidents involving adults often also involve children. They see, they hear, and they feel it, even if it's not directed at them. This impacts their well-being and their development. It shapes how they think about their world and future relationships. And it may even make them feel like using violence to solve a problem is okay. And this is the cycle we need to break. These are complex issues caused by a wide range of social and economic conditions. And this is why we have 9 government agencies working together, with support from Te Puna Anui Business Unit to make sure different parts of the system are working well together. Of course, we also need government working well with the community to enable this change. community leadership, action and insights are essential for implementing solutions that help people on the ground. And that is what this action plan is all about. Delivering practical improvements in key parts of the system with a focus on families and whānau who we are here to serve. We want to do more of what works to break the cycle of violence. This plan takes a different approach to the first action plan and is centred on government doing fewer things more comprehensively. There's a lot to do, and this action plan focuses on areas where the greatest differences can be made. There are 7 specific focus areas: investing and commissioning well through social investment approach and better contracting, keeping people safe by strengthening multi-agency responses in communities, stopping violence through accountability and behaviour change, protecting children and young people, strengthening our workforce, acting on sexual violence and preventing violence before it starts. Agencies will start working to make changes straight away on the 3 top focus areas for the next 2 years. Let me talk briefly about these. First, investing and commissioning well. This is about what government invests in family violence and sexual violence system and how this shapes what is delivered and how. Work is already underway to review the current spending so we can make better decisions about future investments. Te Puna Anui has been working in this space in recent years, overseeing joint agency budget packages. We're now bringing a social investment approach to the way we make decisions, and this will allow us to have a greater understanding of the impact of what we are spending. We will also be working towards improving our approach to contracting services. For many years now, communities have expressed frustration with the lack of coordination and duplication in contracts. This action will help ensure more effective and efficient management of contracts. This means that family violence and sexual violence providers who deliver services will have more certainty and less duplication. The second key focus area is keeping people safe. This action plan will strengthen multi-agency responses by making practical improvements to the way that services work together on a local level. An effective integrated approach requires government agencies to work well together. Police, MSD, Oranga Tamariki, health and education all have a part to play in responding to family violence when it is reported and when signs of violence are seen. Multi-agency responses bring everyone together to develop plans and work with victims and survivors to not only get them to safety, but to also support to keep them safe. This is essentially important for people at high risk or injury of death, or for families who have complex needs. Alongside the action plan, Te Puna Anui has also just published a report on the current state of multi-agency responses. This is an important baseline report that identifies opportunities for improvement and is aligned with evidence about what is needed. We know that breaking cycles require support for people to heal and to change their behaviour. This is why a third key focus of the action plan brings focus on stopping violence. That means providing support to people who have used violence and, again, looking for ways to break the cycle of harm. My colleague, Minister of Justice Paul Goldsmith, has already announced a bill to create a specific new offence that recognises stalking and imposes a penalty of up to 5 years in prison for people who break the law. This is an important addition to strengthening accountability and keeping people safe. And we are also reviewing the non-violence programs that are mandatory for people who have protection orders made against them. These programs support people to understand what triggers their behaviour, the harm they have caused, and how to live without being violent towards others. MSD is rolling out a new family violence service for men called Te Huringa or Te Ao. This will support providers to work with men in communities who are hurting their partners and children, and who realise it is time for change but need that support. Importantly, we are extending access to rehabilitation services to people on remand, and we will be expanding the provision of safety programs to cases going through the criminal court. Improvements to the sexual violence system include work by ACC and MSD to create a single platform for accessing services, continuing development of kaupapa Māori sexual violence services, and services to address concerning sexual ideation. So how will we know we are making a difference? Te Puna Anui recently released its first baseline report under the Outcomes and Measurement Framework. What does that mean? To put it in simple terms, it gives us a way to track progress. It looks at how we measure success for those who are disproportionately affected by violence. That means women, children and young people, Māori, Pacific peoples, ethnic communities, disabled people, older people, and the LGBTQIA+ communities. Measuring progress also helps ministers to hold Te Puna Anui and agencies accountable for what they are delivering. At the end of the first 2 years of this action plan, we'll assess progress and refresh our focus for the final 3 years of the plan. One lesson we learnt from the first action plan was the importance of learning as we go. We know that it will take time, but it is important that we get this right. I want to acknowledge and thank all those who engaged with Te Puna Anui in the development of this action plan, and many of you are in the room today. That targeted engagement has informed the focus areas we present to you today. This action plan will not solve all the problems in the family violence and sexual violence system, but it will strengthen and improve critical aspects of the system. Today, we are aiming to make people safer, and I look forward to working with ministers, Te Puna Anui, and you, our stakeholders, to ensure this plan makes our community safer and improves outcomes for our most vulnerable families. And I'd just like to end by saying thank you. Thank you for being that person. Thank you for being the person that wakes up every day, goes out in your community and helps those who are most in need. And so with that, the second Te Ao Rere Kura Action Plan is officially launched.